Hey guys, it's Hunter. Welcome back to another video. So, Ibanez, not my go-to brand, but this year's Axion label series definitely caught my eye. This is Ibanez's newest line, and they are spec'd to the brim. One that looked the most interesting to me is this RGA61AL? Yep, RGA61AL. Ibanez SKU numbers can sometimes be difficult to remember. But yeah, point is, even as someone who prefers non-pointy traditional shapes, I was very excited to try one of these out. So is this new Axion label guitar won me over to Team Ibanez? Let's take a closer look. Now before we get into the review, in the spirit of transparency, which is a core element of the content that I create, this video was sponsored by Ibanez. It's the only way they could get me to try one out. No, I'm absolutely kidding. As I've said in a previous video and in the intro, the Axion label series really did catch my attention. Even though I'm not really an Ibanez guy, I was really excited to get my hands on one. I would have done this review anyways, especially since it was announced this has been one of the most highly requested guitars for a video. The way my workflow is, I can only complete one demo a week, and I generally have at least 2 or 3 guitars waiting for a review. Ibanez is just compensating me for my time and priority in the queue. That's it. Doesn't change my opinion on this guitar. They've seen my videos, they know what I've said about Ibanez products in the past, and I've made it very clear that as an independent reviewer, I'm going to say what I want, and they were okay with that. It's kind of sad that I have to dedicate so much time in the video to explain that I'm not going to lie to your face, but that's the world that we live in. So that's how that works. Now let's get into the review. Now on paper, this guitar is very impressive. Let's talk build specs. The body is made of Nianto, which is characteristics similar to mahogany, and a bolt-on 5-piece Panga Panga walnut neck. There's a flame maple veneer top on the carved body, matching one on the headstock, and the Makassar ebony fingerboard has 24 jumbo frets. The entire guitar has a sleek satin open pore finish, which feels awesome. I prefer this over a completely smooth satin finish because it feels closer to nitro, than somewhat plasticky poly. Now the first thing I noticed when I picked it up is that the overall build quality feels amazing. This feels like a very reliable instrument, and it's also heavier than I was expecting. I thought because it looks so modern it would feel super light, but it's actually a decent 7.5, 8-ish pounds. Now one of the big reasons that I wanted to try out this particular guitar is I wanted to see if the finish looked as good in person as it did in the promo pictures. And yeah, Ibanez killed it. I'm not sure if it's going to show up as well in the B-roll as it does in real life because my camera is aging, but this RGA61AL is stunning. The Indigo Aurora Burst, at least on this model, is actually darker around the edges than it is on the website photos, but in my opinion, that's better. It doesn't look as washed out. It's also shiny, like near the edges, which I wasn't expecting. A finish this bright, it could have easily come across as gaudy, but in this context, it actually works. Especially with the burnt chrome pickup covers, the word eye-catching for this guitar is an understatement. Even from the back, this guitar looks nice, but in a different way. While the front is all bright colors being blasted straight into your retinas, the back is all about the natural grain and personality of the woods, and it's very elegant. Now it does have a couple of dings and scratches, but they're not factory defects. This guitar is the actual unit that was on display at this year's NAMM show. So 3 or 4 days of people constantly picking it up, especially since it was one of the most anticipated models from one of the most visited brands at the show, and it's only got minor scrapes and buckle rash. I mean, that's pretty good news in the durability department. More of a concern from a QC standpoint is that the area near the pickup routes isn't the cleanest. The pickups aren't perfectly aligned in the routes, and especially near some of the corners, it's not a very smooth cut. When I first unboxed the guitar, I didn't even see it. It's one of those small things that you don't really notice until you do, and then you can't stop noticing. It doesn't affect tone or playability, but at $1,300, it's not something I'd expect to see. Talking about playability though, that's where a lot of players are going to fall in love with this guitar. It is a very quick player. One of the main things I notice about most Ibanez is how flat the fingerboard is. This Axion label has a 16-inch fingerboard radius, which, as a rhythm player used to traditional specs, feels a little weird and sometimes uncomfortable, but it's a spec that shredders will definitely appreciate. Then the jumbo frets are very nice. I've always found them easier to play than the smaller ones. The fretwork on this one is flawless, though that's not entirely surprising. It was a NAMM show unit and now it's out for this review. Nonetheless, it's still worth pointing out that it's perfect. This Axion label guitar comes with Ibanez's Nitro Wizard neck. It's kind of like a D shape, it's mostly round and a little flat on the back. It's 19mm thick at the first fret and 21mm thick at the 12th. So it's thin, but not stupidly thin, like you'll sometimes find on those shred-oriented guitars. Then with the satin finish, the result is a guitar that feels very quick and very modern. Quick side question though, now that I think about it. So I poke fun at Ibanez's naming scheme all the time because, well, they're SKU numbers. There's no hype at all. And the justification I hear all the time from the Ibanez Defense Force is that it tells you everything about the guitar's specs. So the guitars just get a string of letters and numbers, but then the necks get hype names that don't tell you anything explicitly about the profile? Like if you're not familiar with Ibanez guitars, how do you know what shape a Nitro Wizard is? Is it a D, a C, a U, and how does a Nitro Wizard compare to a regular Wizard, or a Super Wizard, or a Wizard 2, or Wizard 3? Is it just me? Like, doesn't it seem backwards? Moving on to the bridge before Ibanez decides never to send me anything again. This is my first experience with the Gibraltar Standard 2 hardtail bridge. It feels like a solid unit mounted to the body by 4 large screws. And the rounded saddles makes this a very comfortable guitar to rest your hand on while chugging out some juicy palm mutes. I'm not gonna lie, I was actually quite surprised. The guitars I normally like to play have thicker necks, rounder fingerboards, and raised bridges. That's not at all what this RGA is about. But it's still pretty comfortable for even someone like me, and it didn't take that long to get used to it. When it comes to features, like the rest of the Axion label line, this RGA61AL is absolutely loaded. Starting with the tuners, this guitar has Goto locking machine heads. Goto is one of my favorite brands for tuners. Quality and functionality wise, they are just rock solid. Plus, I think they have some of the best looking thumb screws in the business. Then the frets have been given Ibanez's Sub-Zero treatment. This means that while they're still nickel, they're also much harder than standard frets, which means they'll last a lot longer without wearing down. Both the Ibanez logo on the headstock and the side dots glow in the dark. While the luminescence doesn't really serve much of a purpose with the logo besides looking awesome, The side dots can actually be really useful so you don't get lost on the fingerboard on a dark stage. Now I do wish the nut on this guitar was either bone or graphite. Instead, this guitar comes stock with a plastic nut. Now to be fair, I haven't really experienced any sort of problems with the strings getting stuck and then slipping sharply out of tune, but for a guitar in this price range, you generally expect a high quality non-plastic nut. Then even the truss rod cover is actually pretty cool. You don't have to unscrew the whole thing. There's a little plastic door on a hinge that you can just rotate off for quick and easy access to the truss rod. This guitar also comes with Schaller strap locks, which is a nice feature. They're time tested, they work, they'll keep your guitar from falling off. And one of the biggest selling points for this RGA is that it comes with a set of bare knuckle aftermath humbuckers. These are chunky as fuck, and here's what they sound like. I'm using the Peavey 6505 Plus for distorted tones and the Marshall DSL 100 for cleans. Yeah, so these pickups are awesome. Bare Knuckle makes some great stuff. The Aftermath set is one of the most popular with modern metal players right now. You've got the bridge powered by 3 ceramic magnets that works great for clear, high gain riffage, and then it's paired with an Alnico 5 powered neck for those juicy lead licks. Each pickup is hand wound and shipped from the UK, so they are not cheap. In fact, if you were looking to buy your own set of bare knuckle Aftermaths with burnt chrome covers, you're looking at 256-ish British pounds sterling, which converts to about 340 bucks US, and that's before even shipping, taxes, and customs. Now, bare knuckle is actually quite interesting in that, unlike most other big name pickup brands, they're actually quite a small company. That allows them to pay more attention to QC for each pickup, but it also means that they can't offer as large an OEM discount to guitar brands as, say, EMG or Seymour Duncan. So if you're wondering why this has a slightly higher price tag than other Indonesian-made Ibanez or even others from the Axion label series, it's probably the bare knuckles. But I'm gonna say from my taste and tone as a metal rhythm guy, totally worth it. Plus, being able to split the pickups for some jangly clean tones out of this metal-looking monster, it's great. Okay, so conclusion time. I came into this video with a heavy, anti-modern, pointy guitar bias. I like my traditional shapes, and I like my traditional build specs, basically the exact opposite of this guitar. I generally don't like the feel of the stereotypical modern metal guitar. Super flat fingerboards, super thin necks, bridges that are flush to the body. And while this guitar isn't gonna flip my preferences and suddenly make me fall in love with all that, I can definitely appreciate what Ibanez has created with the RGA61AL. It is just a solid, modern, feature-packed instrument, and it looks phenomenal. It is slightly pricier than the guitars I generally feature on this channel, but for that extra cash, it's kind of amazing how much stuff Ibanez has managed to sneak in here. The lumen lays, the Goto locking tuners, the Sub-Zero treated frets, the bare knuckle pickups with custom covers, the Schaller strap locks, the 5-piece neck, the ridiculous finish. For the price, it would have been nice to have a gig bag, but other than that, all you're really missing is the kitchen sink. I think if you're an Ibanez fan already, you're gonna love the Axion label stuff. And if you're not an Ibanez fan, I would still recommend at least trying this guitar, because it is a lot of fun, and it seems to have more personality than any of the other Ibanez guitars that I've tried. So I guess the bottom line is, while it's not to my personal taste, the RGA61AL is an impressive guitar, and it sounds really good. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button. These are of course just my opinions, and I'd love to hear yours, so leave them in the comments, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. You can hit the bell for notifications, they sometimes work. Shout out to Charles DeTow and the rest of the awesome patrons for making what I do possible, and thanks to Luke for mixing everything. Social media and merch links to support the channel are down below. As always, thanks so much for watching, you've been awesome, and I'll see you for the next video.